Good morning. Good morning. So this is Safe Family Sunday, and two bummer things happened so far. One is, I know some of you weren't warned that I was going to be speaking today, and it's hard following Pastor Bucky because he's such an incredible communicator. And so, but I'm here. And hopefully the Lord will use me in some way in your, to encourage. Last time I spoke, a person came up to me afterwards and said, I really do have to tell you, I was really disappointed when Bucky didn't come up there and you were up there. And I'm like, okay. What do you say? I don't know. and then she said, and you weren't half bad. You ever get those things where you're like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not, So I apologize, but I'm here, and this is Safe Family Sunday. The other bummer thing today is Scott Engel introduced me. Now, Scott Engel, for those who don't know, he is on the board of Safe Families, as well as Larry Boyson and Dorothy Chow. So, if they're all here, three of my bosses are here to evaluate me. So if I'm out of a job tomorrow, I hope you'll pray for me. It's really a delight to be able to share with you about the ministry of Safe Families and the work we've done and over the years. And in particular, when I came up with the idea of Safe Families, South Park Church was a church we launched it out of. Probably over 15, 18 years ago. And Safe Families is this idea I came up with where we could recruit thousands and thousands of people to take in children of parents who are going through a very difficult time. And by doing so, we could keep kids safe and keep them out of foster care, which isn't really a good thing. I'll talk about that in a minute. Going into foster care isn't really a good thing. And then we recruit other volunteers who are willing to come alongside parents and support them, befriend them, help them out, help them get back on their feet. The biggest struggle that parents have who end up going into foster care, by the way, there's 22,000 children in foster care in Illinois. The biggest problem they have is they have no one else to turn to. We call it isolation. They might call it loneliness. When I go through a problem, I have a bunch of people on my phone I can call, right, to help me out. Hey, I need this. Can you help me out? Can you help me out? I can't imagine being a parent going through a problem and having no one to help you out. So I came up with this idea. I kind of presented it to South Park. They're like, we think that's a good idea, and we're going to be part of helping you build a massive movement of Christians who are willing to open up their homes and take in kids, but also to befriend and come alongside parents without actually having their kid in a host family home, and support them and help them get on their feet. Little did I know that it was illegal, right? It was illegal in Illinois. We got a cease and desist. The attorney general at the time, I won't say his name, said that what you're doing, this whole Christian thing and taking in and helping kids, is illegal. I received 3 other cease and desists from attorney generals as we started to grow in other states, saying that it was illegal. And I ended up having to write 17 laws to prove that the church can make a difference in caring for kids and making our communities and kids safer. And we've passed 17 laws and have been able to do that. To date, well, I do want to say, if you can remember to do this, we've been working on a law in New York for probably 7 years. And we've passed the court, and then it went to the Court of Appeals because attorneys believed that what we were doing was not good, even though we've done it in so many other areas. And we passed that, and now I think we have to go to the Supreme Court of New York in order to be able to get that past, the idea that people can come alongside parents who are in a difficult situation and take in their kids, if that parent wants to, until they're able to get back on their feet. Who would think that's wrong? We've done it now 80,000 times of kids being hosted in homes. We've helped 30,000 children, 20,000 parents, and it has exploded not just in the U.S., but in the UK. We're in every community in the United Kingdom, in all 4 countries. Canada, we're throughout Canada, Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's wanting to go into China because there's 5,000 kids and 500,000 kids in orphanages because nobody wants them. And then we're starting 12 other countries this year, from looking to end human trafficking by befriending parents and helping them be what they need to be for their kids, to child labor, to emptying orphanages because we can help that parent be what they need for their kids, in the Philippines and Africa and in many different countries of the world. And I think about when I first came up with the idea and I presented it to South Park, they could have easily said, that's really stupid and don't bother. But they didn't. They believed in it. And South Park Church has been a leader throughout the country, and people in the church living out radical hospitality and coming alongside families in difficult situations. Our ultimate goal is to grow a group of neighbors who come together and serve as a safety net for kids and their parents, almost becoming like extended family, what a grandparent or an aunt and uncle will do, but many families in our country don't have that. And we become like that. We replace the cliff that parent is about to fall off of with a slope, giving them a chance to turn things around. We establish safeguards, and we really build backstops, right? I know you're having difficulty, Mom, but it's not going to go any farther than this. And we've had so many opportunities to be salt and light in this area. And it really is about, in my mind, why I do it is really about preventing the need for kids to be separated from their parents and go into foster care. Foster care is, I would say, not an evil necessity, but it's something that, yeah, it has to be there, but it's unfortunate that it has to be there. As some of you know, I also run a ministry called Lydia Home Association, and we have 40 kids in a building on Irving Park and the Kennedy Expressway who are all in foster care, and all of them don't have a family that's willing to take them in. And it was interesting, this theater called Philemon Theater said, well, we're really interested in partnering with Lydia Home. And we're wondering if we can spend some time with your kids and teach them how to be an actor or an actress. So they spent 2 years working with our kids. Little did I know that they were trying to figure out what it's like to be in foster care. And they ended up creating a play that our kids helped design come up with the name, develop the characters for, and it's professional actors acting it out. And it just opened yesterday. It's called Alex in Windyland. And it's about the journey of foster care. And something that our kids said is the land in between. And I was intrigued by that. The land in between what? The land in between leaving your family and either waiting for another family or waiting for a judge that says you can go home. It's a land in between where all sorts of things happen, and many times nothing good happens. And they know that the longer they wait, particularly boys, the longer they wait, the harder it is to find a family, to get to a family. Some of them have said this as they worked with the actors and talked about what it's like. They said this. They said, when you go to school and someone knows that you're in foster care or a foster child, they look at you and they say, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why does nobody want to take care of you?" So we're hopeful that this play, people being able to see this difficulty that kids have in this land in between, will generate for what they hope to be as families that could take care of them. But it's empowered me more to do what we're wanting to do today, is talk about Safe Family, encourage you to think about being part of Safe Families and being able to help stop this difficulty of kids being removed from their families. We have a number of people here that serve in Safe Families that we want to say thank you to, and actually we have a video that shares a little bit about what they have done in Safe Families and what they think of it. Can we play that now? If not, I've
Hosting children with Safe Families
had
a tremendous impact on our family.
This was a great way for my wife and I to give, and we get back so much more by meeting the families that have a need.
I became involved when I went in labor with my premature baby. I had no other resources for my first child.
My ex-wife left, and Safe Family helped me with my daughters in very tough times.
I took a chance on someone raising or helping me raise my child.
They treated me like a family.
And we became family over the years.
Accepting that all people are of unsurpassable worth to God is one of those that Safe Families demonstrates the best.
My wife and I feel like we have the gift of hospitality, and Safe Families really speaks to that.
We were listening, we were surrendered to His will, and He opened the door. He just gave us the child and the strength and resources in community to help take care of that child and the mother.
I think both Cindy and I were surprised at hosting how much other people reached out to help us as we were hosting.
They really assist us with things like bringing us meals, making sure the kids we were hosting in our homes had clothes and diapers.
It's been a joy to bring them to all of our family activities as if they're part of the family. I work in a high school, so it's a great opportunity to bring them to football games, track meets, musicals, plays.
It's a wonderful blessing for all involved, for the families in need, for the host families, and for the family friends. It's really like putting Jesus' hands and feet into a great work.
Safe Families supports the mission of the church by reaching out to help the least and the lost in a very impactful way.
You are fulfilling God's will. You just have a joy and a peace that fills your heart. Even though through the troubling times, you look back and say, yes, I would do it again.
We looked around for a place where we could donate our time. Well, I personally can't fix anything, but I can drive, and this was a perfect match to use my driving skills to to help others.
Last year, we actually did the Safe Families and Lydia House Footsteps for Families, and that was super fun.
This is some way that we saw that we could easily become a part of and help in some way.
We love Safe Families.
So that's just a little example of what people have done, from hosting kids to befriending and helping be a friend to a mom who's trying to raise her kid, or mom or dad who's trying to raise their kid by themselves, to, you know, that big guy, Pat. I don't know if anyone met Pat Vanish. He's like 8 feet tall, and his job is to go pick up kids from their parents. Can you imagine turning your kid over to this guy who's like 7 feet? No, is he 6, 7? Huge. But there's a role for everybody. Safe Family grandparents, people helping with, we have a clothing closet, because if someone takes in a kid, we don't want them to have to buy anything, to all sorts of things. And we have a race coming up, not a race, but a run coming up that you're welcome to stop by the table and join the Safe Family team at South Park Church. I want to do this other really quick announcement, is that some of you have heard that we're building on the outreach committee good work over the years, and are developing a community-focused outreach, a way to reach out to people in our neighborhood right here around us. And you'll be hearing more about that in a few minutes, but we looked at what really is the need in our community, in Park Ridge and Des Plaines. What really is the need? And Bucky talked about this 2 weeks ago. The biggest problem, the biggest social problem we have in our communities throughout the United States is the problem of loneliness. The problem that many people are feeling alone, that 57% of all people, adults, eat all their meals by themselves. And many people have no one to talk to, no one to hang out with, no one to listen to them or befriend them or do that. So we're looking at thinking through, how can we as a church tackle some of these things that are occurring right in our neighborhood? We'll do other things around outreach to our community, but the idea of helping people belong, building belonging, building people relationships so that they're not serving by themselves, is one of the target that we want to do with this new work that we're looking to do. So you'll hear from us a little bit more as it gets developed, but I hope you'll consider joining us as we reach out and befriend our neighbors. And that's what I really want to share with you the last few minutes today, is about the issue of belonging. How can we as a church help tackle the issue of belonging? And I'd like to read the scripture today. It's Luke 19, 1 through 7. And if you look in your bulletin, you'll be like, well, that's not what's in the bulletin. You're right. I panicked a couple nights ago, and I'm like, oh, this is better. So I changed it. But it was too late. It was already printed. But Luke 19, verses 1 through 7, it says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called to him. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumble. This is the word of God for the people of God, and together we say, thanks be to God. Okay, I did that right. I highlighted that here to make sure I did that right. this was meaningful to me because it reiterated things that Jesus has done throughout Scripture, throughout stories. Looked for, identified, and befriended those that were on the outskirts of society. Although Zacchaeus was wealthy, although he made a ton of money, he was rejected and alone. And out of the whole crowd that was looking to hover around Jesus, Jesus identified Zacchaeus as the one that he wanted to spend time with. Zacchaeus, who I'm sure struggled with isolation and loneliness, to feel like no one really understands him, being ridiculed and rejected. And he wanted to see who Jesus was and be a part of it. And I'm sure was shocked when Jesus said, I must stay in your home. And then Jesus revealed his deep understanding of Zacchaeus' need for belonging, acceptance, and love, which ultimately resulted in him giving up and identifying what he had done to people. And if you look through other scriptures, the woman at the well, the blind man, other ways like that, Jesus interacted with people who were on the edge, and gave them values and worth regardless of their social status. It reminded me a little bit, actually, of my father. My father was I went to church when I grew up. Now it's not like that anymore. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, whatever it was. Anytime the door was open, we went to church. And my view of being a Christian was that you end up going to church, and sometimes church was quite boring, right? And that's what I thought being a Christian was. I don't know if anyone grew up at that time, and we actually learned the song, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. I don't know if anyone's remembered that. But we had all sorts of teaching, and we went to church, but my view of what it was like to be a Christian was the fact that you just go to church. All your friends are at home, and you go to church. It wasn't very positive. And then I started working with my dad. My dad, I think I might have shared, my dad's a bricklayer. And I started working as a bricklayer with my dad, mixing mortar. Jim's a bricklayer. He was a bricklayer, mixing mortar, moving blocks around. And I thought I was pretty good at it, but actually I wasn't. And my wife can attest, I can't really do anything at home without breaking it. But one time we were on a scaffolding, probably 12 feet high, and for whatever reason, I'm not actually sure, I don't remember it, I fell off and landed on my head and was unconscious. My dad had to call the ambulance and things like that. Then later that day, I don't know if you know these corrugated roofs, these metal roofs that have things like that. Well, he said, Dave, go up on this roof and move all the blocks over there. So in my smartness, I thought, I'll get a wheelbarrow, fill all these blocks, and then take them to another part of the roof. Little did I know, I flattened the entire metal of corrugation. My dad came up, said, Dave, what'd you do? I'm like, well, I moved the blocks. He said, but you ruined the roof. And I'm like, I didn't know it was supposed to be that way. So my dad, I don't know if this was just a convenience or it just was poor timing. At the end of that day, after a number of other days of really bad things, messed up I did, he said, Dave, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, I think I'm going to be a bricklayer. And he said to me, it's one of those things, like, I don't know if that was good or bad. He said, Dave, whatever you do, don't be a bricklayer. But I got to see my dad in action. And when he died, We had a little thing at church. I used to go to Evangelical Free Church at Des Plaines. That's a church he actually and a friend started. And we had a ceremony there. And all the people that used to work for my dad came to the ceremony. And I remember I knew some of them and I knew their stories. Some my dad hired right out of prison. And they said to me, nobody would even look at me. And your dad took a risk and hired me. And he saw me. And he helped me out. And others would do the same thing. So many people said to me, your dad did something that no one else would do, not even my own family would do. And these were all people that were not the stewards or the highest people in society. They were people who just got out of prison or homelessness and things like that. And many of them said, my dad told them to not tell anybody. But when some of them had financial or difficult situations, my dad always gave them money without asking. So when I think of what Jesus was talking about, recognizing what I learned from what it was like growing up being a Christian, I learned about what my dad taught me, right? He said, nobody is too low for you. Nobody is too low for you. That it's more important for us to take care of one another. And he said that, and I said, well, why would you do that, Dad? You could have hired other bricklayers. He said, if I didn't do it, who would? If I didn't help them, who would? And that was something that impacted me really my whole life when I think about even starting Safe Families. If I don't do it, who would? And I think that's what the point of Zacchaeus and Jesus is all about. Our capacity to recognize, befriend, provide value to those that are the most difficult in our society that have no one else to turn to. So my first point is in order to do that, we need to belong. Belonging is a fundamental human value. Psalm 34:18 says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, but is the most difficult situations that people in our community are struggling. Loneliness is the biggest problem. My bet in a group like this, probably a good 75 people here are struggling with loneliness. That when they leave here, they might not talk to anybody. They go home, they don't have anyone to talk to. They don't have anyone that's asking how they're doing. And it's important for us to get it right here in our church. Is that people need to, I don't know if anyone has water. Does anyone have water? People need, there's no water up here. Okay, great. People need to belong. And we need to belong. I don't know if you've ever been through a period of loneliness yourself. My bet we all have been through a period of loneliness ourselves. And it could be because we went through a period of suffering. It could be we went through a period of rejection. It could be because we were neglected and we struggle with loneliness. Loneliness is an unwelcome feeling where the relationships we have, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. The relationships we have don't match the emotional needs that we're experiencing. We could be surrounded by people and struggle with feeling alone. And many times it results in the absence of meaningful interactions, lack of feeling seen, heard, and understood. John DeLong, a popular podcaster for mental health, said this. He said, "We've just created the loneliest generation in history." We've just created the loneliest generation in history. And loneliness hits all of us. And it's very, very, very debilitating if we allow it to go unchecked. Do you feel lonely? Are you in a season when you feel all by yourself? When you feel like you're struggling with these needs and emotions of loneliness? You could even be in a great marriage or be attending Ironman or be attending groups and still struggle with loneliness. Loneliness is addressed through belonging. And Jesus wants us to be part of helping people belong. Belong in our family, belong in our community, belong in our church, and belong in the moms and dads that are trying to raise their kids. You know, I went to the Great Banquet this year. Incredible opportunity. And then I read Luke 14, the story of the Great Banquet, and it was a story about a master telling his servants to go out and invite people to come to the banquet. And everyone had excuses on why they couldn't come. And then the master got furious and said, "Go quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and invite the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." I hate to think that Jesus has preferences or God has preferences, but I do wonder if he does. I do wonder. There's so many times that we're reminded, Matthew 25 says, "If I was hungry and you gave me something to eat, I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink, I was a stranger and you invited me in." And it's so important that we consider those that are struggling in our community, in our church, and in safe families. Parents who are having all sorts of difficulty, being on the fringe, not having anyone else that can reach them out. I went through a period of loneliness when I was in high school. I switched high schools. I went from Maine South, yes, to Wheeling High School, no. No clue why my parents had me go to Wheeling High School. But I remember going to high school. I was shy. It was very, very difficult for me to make friends. I had red hair. Back then, red wasn't cool. They called it red. They didn't call it Auburn or all these fancy names that you call it now. They call it red. My coach, I went out for football. My coach didn't know my name. He just called me Red, or sometimes when he was mad, he called me Carrot Top. And it was very, very difficult to make friends. I was all by myself. I was a Christian, and I would bring my Bible to lunchroom, and then everyone would scatter. And I really struggled with loneliness. Until a guy, his name was Ray, who was the center of my football team. I was very afraid of him. And he befriended me when no one else would. And he welcomed me into his network. He was very popular. He welcomed me into his network. And I needed him to address the issue of loneliness. I ended up becoming a starter for the football team. I was afraid to get into fights, so I became the strongest kid in school, so no one would pick on me. And my senior year, this girl, her name was Karen, not my wife, I don't know where she is, Karen, wanted to be homecoming queen. And so she decided, well, so I can win, I should pick the football star on the team to try and go out with me. So friends told me, oh, Karen wants to go out with you. And I was like, are you kidding me? No way. So I went out with her. Little did I know, I think she wanted to date me so that she could be the homecoming queen. And then I found out when she asked me once, we were going out for quite a while, and I'm not very super smart. She said, Dave, how come you don't kiss me? And I'm like, ooh, that's a loaded question. I haven't learned much about dating, but I know that I got to be careful here. So I thought, well, I haven't really thought of it, kissing you. So I'm like, what just came out of my mouth? Shortly after she won homecoming queen, she dumped me. But it's interesting, though, how often we need others to help us get out of our loneliness, our aloneness. We need people to reach out to us and invite us into their network, to befriend. Belonging starts with, oh, bummer, is that a typo? You. Y-O-U. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Starts with SHU. And I came up with this kind of catchy thing. SHU stands for seeing, hearing, and understanding. That's what people need from us. We need to be able to see them as Jesus did with Zacchaeus. People who are struggling, who are feeling with alone and isolation and loneliness aren't easy to find. We need to be able to see them, to recognize them. How often, like you, like me, I would say if I go by someone on a corner who's begging, who is homeless, I often don't look at them and I pretend like I don't see them. Isn't that a common reaction? How often are you surprised when a friend expresses deep loneliness and sadness, but you didn't recognize the signs? We need to be able to see and recognize. Obviously, there's barriers to that, to being able to see people. One sometimes could say that we're so busy, we don't have time to see people. I just need to stick with my group that are like me. Some is around apathy, because we're like, oh yeah, that person's in trouble because they created their own problems, and I don't need to do anything to help them. Or inertia, or we're too self-focused on our own issues. Isn't it true that when you look at your social network, who you hang out with, there are people like you, right? Maybe similar education level, similar financial level that they're in, those similar career success. Those are the people that we associate with. That becomes part of our network. What Ray showed me is that we need to open up ourselves and invite people to join our network, invite them into our community. But we can't unless we see them. The second one is hearing. We need to be great listeners. The tendency is to talk too much. Some of us are afraid of people who are lonely or depressed because we're afraid we might ask the wrong question or say the wrong thing, and so it's better to say nothing. You can't go wrong, though, if people who are lonely are 40% of our population. 1 out of every 6 opportunities you have to talk to people, you're likely going to run into someone who's struggling with loneliness and has no one else to talk to. And let me say this, I have a doctorate in psychology, I pastored a church, I have 5 years in graduate school, I've learned theories and interview questions and how to talk to people and things like that. I've had 30 years of practice as a psychologist. It's interesting, the more experience I have, the less I talk. The more experience I have, the less I talk. Because people need to just for me to sit and listen to them. And that's what we are called to do, is befriend and listen and care for people in that way, not have all the answers. The U stands for understanding. It's the idea of we could see, we can hear, but do we understand? And it's interesting, it's unique to be able to do that, to have an understanding. Galatians 6:2 calls us to carry one another's burdens. That doesn't mean take off their burdens, it means help them carry them. Instead, it's about holding them. The role is not to make things better, always, because many times when people are struggling, we can't make it better. It's the idea of helping to alleviate the pain by sharing the load, and that reduces the pain. Henry Nouwen once said this, I love this. When we honestly ask ourselves which person in our lives means the most to us, we often find that it is those who, instead of giving advice, solutions, or cures, have chosen rather to share our pain and touch our wounds with a warm and tender hand. It's not about having the answers. It's about listening and understanding and being there as we reach out and befriend and help others belong, coming alongside of them. As you think about your own sphere, your own network, ask yourself, what is the action that would help me carry the burden of someone in my network? We all have someone that's struggling at the moment. What do I need to do to help carry their burden? To see, hear, and understand the person right in front of me? All it means is to be present with empathy and vulnerability and listening deeply. The last things I'd like to share with Shu is that belonging needs space. People need space. People aren't going to get over their loneliness easily. It's going to take time. Mother Teresa said, the problem with our world is we draw the circles of our families, and I added, and our networks too small. People need time to belong, to feel like people love them. It's interesting, Psalm 68 says, God sets the lonely in families. The idea that if we're to solve loneliness, this man-made problem that we have that is hitting 40% of our population, it involves us opening up our circle, befriending people, coming alongside of them. But it's going to take time. It's going to take energy, and it's often not difficult. Oops. And then belonging requires resilience. The idea that we need to hang in there, and we need to journey along and help them work through this process. I ran across this survey, and I don't know if it's not certainly a randomized control survey, but it was someone that was studying people who survived Auschwitz. You know that the camp that killed so many Jews? They studied the people that survived it. And what they found is the people that didn't make it were the optimists. Well, I'll be out at Christmas time, or I'll be out at Easter, and then that came and went, and eventually they died. Those that survived were the realists, that those that accepted the situation they were in, they adapted to it, and even found meaning in some of the tragedy. If we're struggling with loneliness, it might not be that we just need to be more optimistic, but we might need to be more realistic. That our problems might not go away, that the difficulties we have might not get better, but we need to adapt to it and survive, and we can only do that, I think, when we have friends. When our walk with the Lord is so strong that we realize that He gives us the strength that we need in order to overcome some of the challenges we have. I'd like to just close with this. If you're struggling with loneliness now, I'm sure someone here is. I hope you'll let someone know There's a table out back that you could put your name down and we'll reach out to you and figure out how to do it. Because if we don't figure it out, if we don't figure out how to solve loneliness here with people going through our church, it'll be difficult for us to bring that to others in our community. We need to start here. And we need to start with ourselves. I feel bad for men, right? Because we've been trained to keep our feelings to ourselves. My dad was a real man. I never saw him cry, never went to the doctor, never took a day off work. He would point like this, and we're like, oh, do I go there or do I go there? Well, the problem is he broke his finger and he never got it fixed. He got a popsicle and wrapped it all up and tried to fix it. He was a man's man. For those of us who grow up in that setting, we realize it's very difficult for us to be vulnerable, to share how we truly feel, and to let people know some of the difficulties that we go through. It's hard to be a man sometimes, I think. So we suck it up. That results in us separating ourselves from others and pulling back and not taking on the glorious life that Jesus had offered us to take on. So if you're struggling with loneliness, I hope you won't settle. I hope you won't just keep going, that you'll be challenged to take a look at what you can do differently as you go on, because we want to address that. We want to encourage you to address that. So that's the first thing I hope you'll consider. The second thing is that there likely is someone in your network that is struggling with loneliness and is having some difficulties. What can you do tomorrow to reach out to them, to help alleviate them? What can you do to help them belong, to help them feel connected, to feel like someone cares about them and wants to listen to them and understand both the good and the bad of the difficulties that they are struggling with? The third thing is, I hope you would consider Safe Families. If you would think about, is there something you could do with Safe Families? You might not be able to host children, but maybe you can befriend a mom who is trying to figure things out all by herself, has no one to talk to, no one to help her solve their difficulties or consider the difficulties that they have. Could you help with that? Could you help by being a resource friend, being able to either pick up kids or help with our resource closet? Or maybe you can't do any of that, but you can walk, right? Or run. We have a fundraiser coming up, and there's a team that's being pulled together from South Park Church that is looking to develop some financial resources for the ministry to help it grow. So as the band comes up, I'd like to just share this from Teresa Avila. She said, Sister Teresa, she said, Christ has no body here on earth but yours. He doesn't have hands here. He has no feet on earth but your feet. Your eyes through which he looked compassion on the world. Yours are the feet to which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, and yours are the feet, and yours are the eyes, and yours are the body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Thank you so much.